Aloha and welcome to this screencast on issue-driven project management. And this is a collection of techniques that various developers have utilized over time to do very lightweight process management using GitHub or some other project hosting system. So the idea of this module is to the idea of this screencast is to give you an overview of issue-driven project management as a way of helping you understand some of the complexities that are associated with project management in general and how you can work together effectively with a small group of people on a relatively small project. Okay, so the first thing I want to say in general is that software project management is devilishly hard, and it's devilishly hard because it depends so critically on so many different factors, any one of which can introduce radical perturbations into what you have to do to be effective. So the size of the team is incredibly important. The characteristics of the project are incredibly important. The personalities of the team members and their skills is incredibly important. The customer needs, of course, are incredibly important, and the technology itself that you're trying to develop. So the simple requirements for the system. So all of these things impact on how to do project management effectively, which means that there's just a universe of different appropriate project management techniques out there that suit various contexts in different ways. Okay, so it's very complicated to try to teach project management without simply just descending into a bunch of buzzwords, and I'm trying not to do that. And so the way that I'm going to try to do that is by talking about some top-level goals for someone at the beginning of their kind of project management, trajectory, and then give you some fairly concrete techniques that you can apply in the context of the current project that should help you satisfy all of these requirements. So let's look at them. The first thing is that for any given member of a project, there's something for them to do at all times. Okay, in a good project. Secondly, that person knows what they should be working on at any given time, and when that person finishes a task, they know what to do next. Okay, you're rarely sitting around waiting for someone else to complete a task, although on occasion that's going to happen, but it should be rare. And that when you actually finish a task, the project's actually closer to completion, so it wasn't a waste what you were doing. Then the state of the project is going to be visible to everybody at all times, so they kind of understand where things are, what people are working on. And then if there is a problem with project management, such as any one of these prior things not being true, it should be able to be recognized by everybody quickly. Okay? So those are some kind of very commonsensical notions for what it would be like to be in a well-running project. And the question is, how the heck do you actually get there? Okay? So I'm going to present this approach called issue-driven project management. And it's really the simplest approach I know that is going to satisfy all of those goals. So the idea is that you have to divide up the work into tasks. You have to meet, there's one rule that's not there, I'll edit it afterwards, but you need to meet every 2 to 3 days, preferably in person, but at least using, like Skype or something, so it's a face-to-face or synchronous meeting. You need to meet every 2 to 3 days to review and revise the set of tasks. When you define a task that someone actually works on, it should take no longer than 3 days to complete. If you have a task that takes longer than that, you should divide it into subtasks. You document each task by creating an issue in GitHub. Every issue has a single owner. That means there's one person who has primary responsibility for making sure that task is completed. Even if multiple people work on it, there's one person who owns it. Then you partition the project into a sequence of milestones. And milestones are simply a due date and a set of issues or tasks that should be completed in order for that milestone to be considered completed. Okay, all milestones should have a due date. And then at all times, every person has at least one issue, preferably 2 issues, that they are the owner of, and then they're responsible for closing. And as you meet every 2 to 3 days, you can update that to make sure that now if someone had completed all their tasks, you've allocated a couple more tasks for them to work on. And then finally, most of the time when you commit, you're committing work that is associated with an issue. That isn't the case all the time, but it should be the case at least 80% of the time. When you're making a commit associated with an issue that you're working on, you provide that issue number in the commit message so that there's traceability there. So let's look at some examples from GitHub. Here's a GitHub issue page for a system called Watt Depot, and you can see there's a bunch of issues there. And the issues can be associated with people. They can be associated with milestones. Okay, so here's the people who can be assigned to various issues. Here's the set of milestones associated with this particular project. They have due dates, so forth. Okay. So as I said before, milestones are going to partition the project into a sequence of phases. Each milestone has an end date, which is the due date for that to be finished. And then, if you close that milestone by finishing all the issues, then you start work on the next one. Under my simplified approach to project development, only one milestone can be active at a time. Okay, and that focuses the effort of the team on one specific, kind of chunk of functionality. And the focus of all effort should generally only be on the issues associated with the current milestone. Sometimes that gets violated, but in general, that's what you want to try to achieve. Okay, all work associated with a project should be captured as a task. I say all with an asterisk because that's a nice thing to kind of strive for, but it won't be true in practice. You do want all of your tasks to be represented as issues. The task grain size is about 3 days worth of work. And so in general, you want to associate in your commit message the issue or task the changes in that commit message or that commit are associated with, and you do that in GitHub by having a hashtag with the issue number. Okay, so I want to say that there are always going to be small changes that you make that take 5 or 10 or 15 minutes or something that really aren't associated with any issue in particular, but they do improve the project and they need it to be done. So go ahead and do those and don't feel guilty, but really they shouldn't be more than 20% of your commits. Okay. So how do you kind of do this over time? And the goal, the way that I suggest you approach it again is to meet frequently. Okay, if you meet frequently, then this is going to work. Okay, if you don't meet frequently, then this approach is really likely to fail. All right, because it's very hard to specify tasks that only take 2 to 3 days worth of work 4 weeks into the future. Okay. It's very easy to specify tasks that take 2 to 3 days of work when you're only looking ahead a week, okay, with respect to the project. So the way that this works well is to start off, define your milestones, okay, and then maybe some very high-level issues or goals associated with each of the milestones, and then start meeting every 2 to 3 days, and at those meetings, build the set of issues or tasks that people should be working on over the next 4 to 7 days, assign the ownership, and then go ahead and go do that work, and then meet again in 2 to 3 days to see how that's going, to see maybe some tasks are more difficult than you thought, so you've got to revise them to be smaller or split them up into 2 tasks. Maybe somebody's going faster than they thought they would, so they've been idle for the past couple days, so now you get a chance to kind of reallocate them to something else. So the goal is that when you meet fairly frequently, twice a week, you just have to, in terms of the concrete things to do, you just have to stay a few days ahead of the project. Okay? You use that milestone set of things to kind of give you your longer term trajectory. But in the short term, your very specific stuff is only looking ahead about a week or maybe 2 weeks max. Okay, so this only works well when you have frequent. I say face-to-face, but I really mean just synchronous meetings. If you want to meet via Skype or Google Hangout or whatever, that's totally cool. But you need to be able to just talk with each other, as opposed to just having a zillion emails. I really recommend some kind of synchronous, ability to talk with each other about the state of the project, that you'll progress a lot faster, uncover a lot more problems earlier if you do that. Okay, so how does this satisfy the key characteristics that I've saying a project management system should satisfy? There's always going to be a task for you to work on, and if there's not, you're going to have a meeting in a day or two where you're going to get one. You know which task to work on because that's decided. Daily meeting. I don't mean daily, but it's at these twice a week meetings. You're always going to have a couple issues associated with you, so when you're done with your first one, there should be another one waiting for you. And you're rarely blocked, because if you are blocked, then there will be a meeting coming up in a day or two that where you can discuss the fact that you're blocked and then figure out a way around it. Okay? Because you're meeting frequently, if a task turns out to be off the critical path, you get a chance to fix that. Just looking at the issue page is going to provide good insight into the state of the project, because you are recording all the tasks as issues. And then breakdowns are going to be recognized at the next meeting. Someone who doesn't have any tasks, someone who isn't finishing the task that they've been assigned, someone who's not doing anything because they're waiting for somebody else, etc., etc. Okay, so that's what I want you to try to practice for this project this semester, is this issue-driven project management. Give it a whirl. I think you'll like it. And it can form a nice building block for more advanced project management approaches in the future.